Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage, where we take a look at games, chat about the gaming news in the industry, and of course, stream for fun. Today we're doing Gaming News Consolidated. This is September 8th through the 14th. And yeah, what I end up doing is I take time every week, a few hours, to go over videos, different channels, go over different articles, do some of my own research, bring it all to you right here in a package in a podcast. We already talked about PlayStation 5 Pro because that was a longer video. And so if you're interested in that, I have that linked down in the description for you to watch. And then this one is going to be everything else that I was going to talk about that's been going on this week. So let me go ahead and check my audio. Just make sure it's okay. Perfect. Sounds great. So what are we going to be talking about this week? We're going to be talking about Space Marine 2, some layoffs. We're going to talk about the current state and future of Hogwarts Legacy. We're going to talk about some companies getting in trouble with microtransactions over in Europe. XDefiant, First Descendant. We're going to talk about some Ubisoft stuff too. And then Annapurna is having a horrible time right now. We're also going to get an update on GameStop. And let's see. We're also going to go over some changes with Destiny 2, which is kind of surprising, and then Nacon. So, again, if you're curious in the PlayStation 5 Pro stuff, that's a whole video in and of itself. That'll be linked in the description. But let's go ahead and get started. Excuse me. I still got my cough, but yeah, slowly getting over it. Very slowly. But yeah, Space Marine 2. It's been doing pretty well. Honestly, a lot of people really enjoy the gameplay. It's snappy, it's choppy, it's just horde mode, just blowing through everything. The mode that they have for controlling the NPC hordes in the game are working really, really well. And they're actually kind of tactful too, which is great. It's got a little bit more intelligence in there. But there have been some issues too. So like early access had issues. People were struggling trying to get into games. Sometimes the matchmaker would get people in to another team that had a duplicate class, which you can't do that. And so the game would automatically kick that player out, and then you'd be put in the queue again to try to find another game. Currently, it's sitting at Steam at 78%. This on Metacritic, I believe, is in the low 80s. And then people on Xbox Store are enjoying it too. They're giving it roughly about 4 out of 5 stars. So people are actually really enjoying this. And it is a good game. Some people are complaining about how short the campaign is, or that some of the modes that are coming in the future should have been implemented now. It feels, some are saying, like a little undercooked. And so for that $70 price tag, it might be a little tough for some people, but they do really enjoy the game. It does run pretty well most of the time. PC players are having a little bit of crashing issues, but that's already getting worked on and fixed. But yeah, the campaign is about 6 hours, which is pretty short. And yeah, if that's still worth $70 to you to play with your pals, absolutely, go for it. But for some people, $70 is quite a bit just for a few hours of content, and that can be kind of rough. People too have also been stuck at some loading screens. So again, these server issues they've already worked on fixing, and players too are complaining that if they're going solo, if they don't have anyone to play with at the moment, or they're not wanting to get into games or just want to do the campaign solo, the AI companions are not the smartest, unfortunately. Especially on the harder difficulty. So sometimes they're not making the tactical move like what you would think they should, or like what a normal player would. And so that can actually cause some frustrations with you going down more often, or kind of having to go like Rambo on your team. And that can be pretty frustrating. But ultimately, kind of the solo experience is a little annoying until they improve or are able to improve your helper NPCs. They do never go down, and they do actually revive you pretty quickly, or at least try to. They're always trying to get you back on your feet. But again, yeah, you're going to be the main player that's playing on that. So some of these things have already been fixed with patches. But yeah, this is one of the best acclaimed games so far. It's already selling into the millions of copies. And so yeah, Saber Interactive and Beacon, they're making money. They're making money on this thing. And that's wonderful. And this is getting some people that have never been in Warhammer getting into the Warhammer franchise and being more excited about the Warhammer universe. And that's cool. I mean, the Warhammer universe has a ton of lore and stuff that the game isn't too heavy in, which is nice, but it's giving players a taste that have never been a part of it before. And that is just really, really cool. Current peak players last week, is about 225,000 on Steam. Time Tracker has this at number 87, but since then it's honestly moved up a lot. I believe it's in the 30s now. And hours per user is average 6.5 hours, which again, that's more like playing the campaign. So people are playing the campaign in one go, or maybe doing a little bit of the multiplayer PvP stuff. And yeah, people are really enjoying the game. Personally, I'm going to wait for the price to go a little lower because I'm not super into the PvP part of it. I'll try it as a review side of it probably next year. Or maybe on Black Friday if it's on sale. But yeah, I'll actually wait. $60, $70 is a little steep for me for that short of a game. Layoffs. So Lost Boy Interactive. I haven't heard anybody really talk about this one yet. They've already had some layoffs, and they're having some pretty deep layoffs this time. 139 employees. They worked on Tiny Tina's, Diablo 4, and some others. And they're owned by Embracer Group. Lately, Embracer Group over the last couple of years have just been cutting studios, canceling games, having layoffs, selling off other studios and IPs like Gearbox. So yeah, this is just Embracer Group doing what it's doing best, biting off too much and then having to get rid of it. And so Embracer Group is still shrinking and shedding employees and studios, and they're just not really doing very good. They've had, again, 2 years of this, and Lost Boy Interactive just keeps getting smaller. Excuse me with my cough today. It also seems like Embracer Group is possibly willing to sell some more stuff. They already sold Gearbox. They sold off another one too, which I can't quite remember. But it's just getting kind of crazy out there. And talking about layoffs, let me get to the other ones here. So Annapurna, some of you may not recognize them as a publisher, but you probably recognize their games. They've done Ashen, Outer Wilds, Journey, Maquette, which is French. I'm sure I've said that wrong. Please leave it down in the comments on how to say it. They've done Stray and Cocoon. So they've actually helped these studios make these games and get them out there and distribute them. And some of these, too, have won awards over the last several years. And they currently have 11 games in development working with those studios, those partners. But everybody at Annapurna walked out. Everybody quit. Like their entire division to get these games out there quit. And so what's been going on? Well, this is generally a smaller publisher. The amount of employees that walked out were about 25 of them. And they work with smaller games and indie titles and getting them out there. And they usually pick some pretty good ones. And so when Annapurna is on the screen, it's like, hey, yeah, this might actually be a pretty good game, which is exciting. And yeah, they do publish a lot. They were founded in 2017, and they've been publishing ever since. And they have, again, a lot of titles already in the works. That's 11 games. And so what's been going on is that the president and the team have been negotiating with the founder, Ellison, to actually spin off the gaming division and for it to be independent. Now, we've been seeing this trend too. This happened with Toys for Bob, and I'm sure I could think of a few others if I had some time, but I don't want to waste yours. And so, yeah, those negotiations just aren't going very well, and Ellison decided just to pull out, just to quit. Nope, it's not going to be enough, probably over money is my guess. Or maybe that the fact Ellison wanted some kind of far-reaching, even though you're independent, I still want to manipulate or maybe control stuff. We don't know the entire story. So if I ever find out, I'll let you guys know. But yeah, the whole team, after Ellison walked away from negotiations, the president and the whole team for publishing games just walked out on the company. And they're probably, in my opinion, they're going to spin off their own little publisher, or maybe start connecting in with some other developers, or maybe try to start their own thing. We'll have to see. So far, new president has been appointed. They've said that they're going to hold all current contracts, and they're going to continue working with all of their partners that are currently developing games. They will hire new staff. Yeah, but you got to hire 25 people. Oh, man, that's going to be brutal. Plus, too, all of that experience, that's all gone. And starting over with a whole new team that hasn't worked together before, even if they're good, is going to be a little choppy. And so, yeah, they're going to hire a whole new staff. And yeah, this is just kind of incredible. Ellis, I wonder if part of it too, I was reading that Ellison also now has a greater focus on other forms of entertainment like film and TV and stuff like that. We're starting to see this trend too, with some of these publishers and some of these owners of IP saying, hey, we want to make a movie, we want to make a TV show, or we want to make mobile games. That was kind of the thing for a while, for the last several years, is make mobile games, and now it's switching over to TV and to movies and shows. And I'm not excited about that. I actually want games. So they haven't been making games very well. Their mobile stuff has been getting shut down just in general across the board for everybody. And now it's like, now we're doing movies. So like Borderlands and The Last of Us TV show. Mario was another one. We had Twisted Metal, Lara Croft, a live series got canceled. The cartoon series is still going to be made, I guess. We have a Minecraft movie. Like, this is just going to keep going, I think, unfortunately. And I wonder if that's just part of the reason why the team left and wanted to be independent in the first place. They didn't like the direction they were going. And since they couldn't come to an agreement with the owner of the company, sayonara, baby, we're done. And so that sucks. That's really quite brutal. Also, too, Microsoft having another round of layoffs. This is another 650 employees from its gaming division, and those that are being let go are corporate leadership and support staff. So that could be like more QA folks. So they didn't technically fire everybody in the QA department last time, but they did fire a lot. And this now, too, which is a great point, they've now laid off like 2,500 people now. And again, this is a massive company. And again, Microsoft is not just gaming, but this is 650 people in their gaming department. And so, yeah, the supporting roles, I think, are going to be pretty important. But the corporates, I'm glad to see them go, because I think a lot of these companies that are ultimately making these decisions, we need to be getting new stuff in and actually be taking the time to get fresh blood in there that isn't just about making money. Because, yeah, this has been incredibly frustrating. And, yeah, it's awful. They said, too, that no games or devices or studios are going to be canceled or closed. It's all about efficiency and long-term success. Again, we've been hearing that forever. Yes, we understand. I do anyway. But again, it doesn't feel good to let people go. And some people are blaming Phil Spencer on this. And personally, I'm not, because everybody's having trouble with the industry. Yeah, it's not really talked about very much, but Nintendo is even having layoffs as well. They're cutting stuff back. They're changing things. So there isn't a single company that's been touched by all of the stimulus that we had during the lockdowns. And so now we're just having to pull back on that. And it hurts for everybody. And this isn't just gaming. This is every type of industry out there, whether it's stuff for siting, building homes, industrial, commercial, whatever. It's everybody, folks. It's everybody. And so, yeah, I don't see this as Phil Spencer. He's just the face that's given the news, and he's being blamed for it, I think, unfairly. Some things are probably his fault and responsibility, absolutely. But I do see this now as the decisions that we've had lately over the last couple of years has been more Microsoft gaming than actually Xbox Phil Spencer decisions. And so I just want to put that out there. Okay, so yeah, we're definitely having some layoffs, definitely having some struggles. And this is this is all a pretty big mess. Oh yeah, Nacon. I got to talk about them too. So Nacon is a publisher over in France. And they've had an uprising of their studios. And so Spider Studios have signed a document listing their complaints, and they've been striking since Monday. So they've been striking a week now. They're currently working on Greedfall 2. Greedfall actually came out pretty good. So, there's a niche audience that's excited for Greedfall 2. There's also been a lot of supposedly improvements on Greedfall. But yeah, it's not going very well. This is supposed to be coming out in September, but it's no longer full development or like a full release of Greedfall 2 in September this month. It's now in early access. And so that I just think just kind of shows how messy it's been for the studio and how frustrating it's been. And there's just some major issues there. And so during development, Greedfall, quite a few left. Others are saying that they're going to leave after the release of the game goes into early access. They're not even going to wait for the game to officially come out. They're just going to quit when that early access happens. And so, the game will launch in early access this month, and it's probably really not going to be that great because they're going to lose more people. In the meantime, Kiloton is seeing what's going on. They're making Test Drive Unlimited, and they've actually joined the strike. And so they've had complaints too for years. It's just fallen on deaf ears for a long time. And they see one studio doing it. They're like, well, we got complaints too with Nacon. So they're joining in the whole beef with it. And so there's quite a few people striking right now. And Nacon too, they've been having some messy games. And some of the decisions, of course, have also come from them. And they've been frustrating the players two of their games as well, like with Sinking City, Blood Bowl 3, Steel Rising was pretty choppy and didn't feel like it was ready. We also had Daedalic make Lord of the Rings Gollum, and we all know how that turned out. There's also been issues with the WRC, which is like rally racing. And then, stuff with Greedfall 2. And the games that are going to be coming out in the future, they're probably going to have some issues as well. So, these studios, maybe not all of them, but these studios are unhappy. And Nacon better start listening, otherwise they won't have any games to publish. Because if you don't have people making your games, you can't publish them. That's a huge problem. And, this strike will probably go on for a while until Nacon finally comes to the table, or maybe, too, just starts being honest with them and saying, look, we're going broke. So I understand you guys have some complaints, but, if Nacon isn't listening whatsoever, people are just going to walk away, like what we saw at Annapurna. So, studios aren't just having the issues. Studios are finally standing up. Congratulations, by the way. Good job for doing this. Studios and developers that are making these games are finally starting to really stand up and say, look, enough. This is not okay. We're not being able to keep up. Work conditions are insane. The burnout is getting frustrating. Excuse me. And burnout happens, folks, when you feel like generally you don't have a say with what's going on. You're just a cog in the machine, and a lot of us have just been living that with our jobs over the years. And it gets frustrating. Absolutely. And so, the one thing, too, that was interesting with all this is that the leadership at Spiders doesn't agree with the strike. They're like, no, everything's fine. And so maybe the issues at Spiders are necessarily more the leadership, not necessarily Nacon themselves. But again, Nacon's got to figure out what's going on. Otherwise, they're going to lose their studios. They're going to lose their labor. And then they can't make anything. And that's not going to look very good for investors, private investors, or look very good for future growth of the company or even their games. So, that is all just a crazy mess. Let's talk about Warner Brothers and Hogwarts Legacy. So, for the next couple of years, they've I think it was the CFO or the CEO. Yeah, it was the CFO has confirmed that Hogwarts Legacy 2 is coming. Quote, it's going to be their future. It's their big IP, and it's going to be their part of the future for the next couple of years. And I'm hoping that doesn't mean a shorter development time, because Hogwarts Legacy definitely had a few years, but they did a wonderful job of making the game, the aesthetic, and Hogwarts Legacy was Warner Brothers' best IP. They tried with Suicide Squad. They were thinking that was going to be the big one, and that wasn't the case. And so we all know that Suicide Squad has basically cost them $200 million plus, probably. And so they're going with where the money is. But now I'm afraid that since they left Hogwarts Legacy alone, Hogwarts Legacy 2 is now going to be a mess, just like Suicide Squad was. So again, these leadership folks need to freaking understand. They just need to get out of the way. They're not making it better. It's just like the government. The government needs to get out of the way at these publishers and devs studios and just let them work. Okay, just let them work on their stuff, because how they're doing things clearly is not working roughly in the last 5 years, and people are pretty much burnt out on live service. They're tired of how everything's microtransaction to death. They're tired of the bugs too. I will never, and until things change, I will never buy early access, probably ever, because I also don't like the idea of it. But yeah, I'll never buy early access and pay for it for a few days early, because again, that's just another microtransaction, folks. It's not actually benefiting you at all, because all of these launches are a mess, including Space Marine 2. That was another one. It's like, get early access and things are a mess. And it's so incredibly frustrating that this is actually, what's going on. But yeah, so, Warner Brothers, they've had some big failures, not just Suicide Squad, but Multiverse is another one. They took that game off, put it back up, and again, it's like, woohoo! And it's just very quickly died off. And they have other games that aren't going well either. And so, yeah, Warner Brothers, again, another publisher, better start figuring out, it's like, we actually need to let people do their job. And that way we can actually get the money. And so, they need to figure this out. They're currently in development with a Hogwarts Legacy Director's Cut. Warner Brothers has also helped another studio do Quidditch Champions, which is $30. But again, even taking a look at Quidditch Champions, it really doesn't look like it's actually doing that well. And so it did launch on all platforms. Steam Charts currently has a 77% for Quidditch Champions. The peak was about 6,600 players. In the last 24 hours, it's about 1,000 people. So it's dropped off a lot. PlayStation Time Tracker shows that people play for a total of about 45 minutes. And this is even with it being free on PlayStation Plus. There's millions that have that. There's about 6 million people that have PlayStation Plus. And they're not necessarily playing much of it. So people are still able to get into games. It is kind of taking some time to find matches. Probably the weekend would be the best time to actually play Quidditch Champions. But again, in my opinion, this shouldn't even have been a price tag, or maybe just a DLC for $20. And they should have actually connected this to Hogwarts Legacy itself, because people already have Hogwarts Legacy. They'll probably be willing to pay another $20 to actually play Quidditch. Yeah, they probably would. But making it an entirely independent and different game, I don't think is going to go over very well. I don't think it's really going to go over well, too, what the director's cut is going to be, because we don't really know what that is. We don't know what that's going to add, and it's probably not going to add very much. It's definitely not going to add Quidditch Champions, so it's like, okay, so we're not going to get Quidditch at all. So what's going to be the point? I don't think it's going to sell necessarily well. And then, too, if the company is all about having kind of a shorter development period possibly for Hogwarts Legacy 2, I'm not really sure what they're going to do with Hogwarts Legacy 2. They already did a wonderful job. It was supposed to be just kind of a one-off, and now they're trying to make a two-off, and I don't think that's going to work very good. So yeah, that is going to be rough. I will keep you guys updated as this develops. Let's talk about 22 European countries have officially filed complaints to the European Commission and the European Network of Consumer Authorities that children are being misled into spending money and manipulated. So especially premium in-game currency, this is where the main complaints are coming from. Even though that it's digital, the gaming world technically needs to abide by real-world rules. And this has been complaints with games like Minecraft, Call of Duty, sports games, and Roblox, Apex Legends, all of this kind of stuff, is that these premium currencies are actually kind of more of an addiction than anything else, and they're, misleading children into actually making purchases that otherwise they wouldn't make. I don't think children should be making purchases anyway, but again, it just shows too that, like, if you look up the top gaming things that are sold on Amazon in America, it's all of these in-game currencies, like V-Bucks for Fortnite, COD points, and etc. It's kind of insane. And but yeah, this is an issue all over the world. It's an issue in Europe as well. And so the complaints are against Epic Games, EA, Roblox, Microsoft, Activision Blizzard, Mojang, which is Minecraft, Supercell, Tencent, and Ubisoft. And so yeah, this could be a really big deal because this could actually change and affect how games are going to be able to do live service, and maybe not even really do live service at all. We had a study earlier this week where there were hundreds of developer studios that responded back saying they're not sure if live service model is really a good model anymore. Over 60%. That's pretty big. And so yeah, we keep voting with your money, folks. It's working. It's working. I mean, games like Black Myth Wukong, Helldivers 2, Elden Ring, Hogwarts Legacy, Stellar Blade. Okay, these POW Worlds, they're not expecting to be huge, massive successes necessarily, but they are. And that's what's wonderful about this, is that we do have a lot of people that are actually making, voting with their money. And you do have a vote, folks. Again, you're just one out of, hundreds of millions of us, or maybe even a billion of us by now. But your vote does matter. It really does. And when we vote in mass, these companies have to listen. And two, these governments, they also have to take a look to see if things are fair. Because if we're honest, live service is getting to be a pretty tired word. So if anything develops from this later into next year, I will definitely keep you guys updated. But yeah, this could deeply affect live service games and mobile games. Let's talk about XDefiant. So they've announced plans for the game. We got word that they might have to shut down basically at the end of the year, which would be huge, or that there would be massive changes, right? And this could be pretty big. So XDefiant has already announced plans for the game. They have login rewards through September 9th through the 24th. This will be like coins and boosters, that kind of thing. You'll actually, if you do the entire thing, if you grind through it all, you'll actually be able to get enough coins to buy the battle pass in the game. We're also looking at a prestige mode. We're also looking at adding another currency where you can earn in-game and spend on cosmetics, so you can get stuff for free just for working for it. We're also looking at adding an objective score, adding to weapon XP, which is nice, because some people, again, they aren't great shots. There's not a lot of aim assist in that game, and it's difficult. They're going to add in-game chat in between teams, between teams in between matches. Excuse me, it was rough to get through that, folks. You understand, tongue tie. Definitely. There's going to be a quick match button. We'll be able to get you can just get the first available match. Spiders are going to be reworked with the Watchdogs class. They're going to work more like an EMP grenade that will kind of follow you around or follow players around and prevent them from using their abilities. Allies, they won't stick together as much when they're running into each other during the chaos, and then enemies are more likely to be solid, so they've been working that too. But still, this is coming, a lot of this is still coming in the future. And that's what we've been hearing a lot from XDefiant, is like, I like XDefiant. I think it's fun. I think it's pretty good gameplay. I like the maps. I like definitely some of the game modes. I've spent probably, 15, 20 hours in XDefiant. It's been pretty fun. But it's not enough really to bring me back. That's the issue. I mean, after playing Black Ops 6, I'd rather play that. I'm serious. And I already have Game Pass, so I'm going to be getting it on launch anyway, on October 25th. And so I really do think the team at XDefiant, they have a problem, is because, since they've been compared to Call of Duty, whether they wanted that or not, those are the expectations, and they're just not able to meet those. And so this is going to be a real challenge for them. And I think we are going to see XDefiant taken offline, and I think we'll see some layoffs probably from this next year. And I think, too, we'll see, them just working on something else. And we're going to see this consolidation in the gaming industry. We already are, but I think we'll continue to see more. as more and more people are just figuring out, look, we need to just make what sells. Otherwise, we're not going to have a company. Or people just going to leave like at Annapurna or just going to quit. Also, too, like at Rocksteady. And so, yeah, companies need to figure this out. So, yeah, keep grinding those bolts, baby. They're having to listen when the money's not there. So, keep withholding your money and don't give it to them if you're not happy. Because, it works. It works. Let's talk about the First Descendant. So, this came out not too long ago. They've had their first season release. And it's not necessarily looking good either. This was my concern, launched July 2nd. I took some time around that holiday to get out some videos about the monetization being insane, also the game being super grindy. And while it is fun in the beginning, it doesn't really incentivize me to actually keep playing. And so taking a look at Steam Chart DB, it shows that they've had roughly an 80% drop off in 2 months, which is a lot. We're roughly at about 25 to 30,000 players on a weekday, and the weekends show roughly about 45,000. So there's still a good bulk of players there. But again, if the numbers drop enough, which that's what the trend is, with another month or a couple of months, there may not be enough people to actually keep the studio going for the game to actually be beneficial. And so a lot of people have just already left the game, and they're probably not coming back. We did see a pretty big spike with that first season, but it quickly dropped off just in a few days. And so people, I think, have just had enough, and they're more excited to play more story-driven games that aren't live service to death. And I think this is why Space Marine 2 is doing so well and selling a ton of copies and doing a great job and getting a lot of press. And it's because it's not a live service game. There still is a kind of like a season pass kind of a deal, but you can actually earn that in the game. You don't have to spend any extra money, which is so nice. There's still DLC packs, but most people are okay with those because, the whole game is not engineered around just selling you microtransactions. And that's the issue with live service is, that's the whole idea. Now, the First Descendant is free, and so that explains the crazy heavy monetization. But again, it doesn't excuse that the whole game is just built around grinding for microtransactions and the best stuff you have to pay for, and that just gets old. And so, it's doing way better than XDefiant right now, but review score is at a 54%. So again, that's partly why it's dropping off, and people are complaining about issues with the game, the grindiness, and the microtransactions just being insane. So I too think, I called it back then, but I still don't believe First Descendant's going to make it. I think they'll probably close at the end of next year. So, we'll have to see. PlayStation Time Tracker shows that it's dropped a couple of spots. It's currently in place number 20 out of 100 in the last 30 days. So it's still pretty popular on PlayStation. But again, it's got that trend of going down and nothing really making it come up and stay there. And so, this is not going to be a Helldivers, unfortunately. Let's talk about Ubisoft. Man, we got quite a bit to talk about them. So Ubisoft is learning a little. So we all know, or maybe not everybody, but we learned that the Crew 1 actually went offline because it wasn't they actually just took the game down. It's not even playable, even if you have the disc. And this is the issue with live service or always needing an online connection, is that as soon as they switch those servers off, there's actually really no way to just play your game, which sucks. And so they said that, ultimately games are a service, and players are saying that they're buying them as a product. So there's had to be some some determination here. And so Ubisoft has finally announced that the Crew 2 and Crew Motorfest are actually going to have offline modes when they're basically done supporting the game. These modes will be patched into the future so that players will still be able to play. And I see this as a huge win because Ubisoft is a pretty big company. Okay, they make billions a year, and they definitely have some pull, and most of us know a lot of their IPs. And while their games aren't amazing anymore, unfortunately, they still have definitely some impact and influence in the gaming industry. So for them to be able to bend over and give in and say, okay, we're going to actually allow you to continue to play these games if you want to. That's really nice because, again, creating an offline mode doesn't cost them anything. They don't have to run any extra servers. There's no licensing issues. It's just, look, here's the game. Go play it. And they don't have to support it after a certain point. And I think an offline mode is a great way to make everybody happy. Players can still play. They can't play with friends, but they can still play and run around when they can't sleep at night. And then companies don't have to keep supporting games forever and letting that sink into their revenue costs and their margin. And so, yeah, I think everybody wins on this. So I'm really glad Ubisoft has done this because hopefully this sets the precedent. Is that, yes, games are a product. They are not a service. Unless it's like arena-style games where it's all about the multiplayer. But if there's any kind of a story or you can just take time to drive around or something, yeah, those games need to have an offline mode. So keep fighting, folks. Stuff like this is where, we still have a choice. We still have control. And again, in mass is very powerful for these companies. And when they start seeing enough pushback, when they start seeing it in their revenue, when they start seeing it in their reviews, they make changes. And so, yeah, we have to be proactive. And in the industry, we can't just complain about stuff and not do anything. Okay, leave a review. Don't buy stuff, right? Take time to actually engage and make a difference. We got some more news on Ubisoft, and boy, they are looking worse, sort of. So, and there are some other factors here. This is definitely a story. So, Star Wars Outlaws has drawn some criticism from its investors, and AJ Investors, which is one of them, they're a insignificant minority shareholder of Ubisoft as a whole. They have less than 1% stake in the company. So, yeah, they're not overly important, right? But they've sent a letter to the board of Ubisoft telling them that, they're worried about the future of the company. There was an earnings call not too long ago for the last 6 months. They have semi-annual quarterly earning reports, and it really didn't look that great. Revenue projections were down. They did have a good margin, by the way. But again, like Ubisoft has just been hemorrhaging money the last couple of years. And even though their last earnings call were positive, they had a 13% margin and were making money. So that means $100 goes in and they get $113 back. That's pretty good. 13% is pretty good. But yeah, the stock's been dropping since Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It's dropped 87%. And that's a lot. You can't really sustain that forever. It's not the lowest they've ever been as a stock. They've been around $4.75 a share. Right now they're $13. So they could have some more room to fall, of course. But this is definitely one of their lowest times as a company. And yeah, it doesn't look good. And two, was struggling for 2 years, 3 years, basically again since like Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It's got to be frustrating for investors because they are losing money. And something's got to change. So AJ says in their letter that they're dissatisfied with Ubisoft performance. They're frustrated with the delays and low sales. And they're suggesting that Ubisoft actually go private or that they sell the company, that they change leadership, basically get rid of the president. And we'll have to see what the Ubisoft board does or if they do anything. Again, AJ only owns about 1%. It's not like they have a lot of pull. But I was just hearing last night that other financial companies and institutions, they're starting to say, hey, Ubisoft, you might actually want to go private because you're not worth investing in. And when you get to that level, that is pretty bad. So the bad games that they've had are Watch Dogs Legions, Immortals, Far Cry 6, Extraction, Lost Crown, Prince of Persia Lost Crown, Skull and Bones. XDefiant isn't doing very well. We just went over that. Star Wars Outlaws is going to sell millions less than what they expected. They've also canceled multiple games and also some mobile games. And then Assassin's Creed, it's like Shadows probably isn't going to make up on sales either. They're still probably going to sell a few million, yeah. But again, it's like there's been so much controversy around that game. I don't think it's going to sell that well. And while they're adding some new features, like some actual stealth mechanics that I appreciate, I don't think it's going to be enough because Ubisoft as a brand is just like, oh, Ubisoft. And they've burned their investors, they've burned their player base for every game they have, and they've canceled a lot of stuff, they've delayed a lot of stuff. And generally speaking, they're just not making money. So they've finally been able to turn things around. They're finally making a profit. But yeah, they have some serious issues because, yeah, when you have internal investors and you have financial institutions all telling you the same thing, that is really bad publicity. And I think the board is going to have to do something because if they don't do anything, then that's just going to signal to the stock markets and to investors like, yep, this is a ship that's going down. I'm done. And people start polling. And so if 87% isn't enough, if the board doesn't do anything at all, this could actually kill the company. So, yeah, Ubisoft is not in a good place, folks. It's not the worst. It's not as worst as what some people are presenting, but it is pretty freaking bad. Let's see. I want to make sure I'm getting to everything. Okay. Let's talk about GameStop. So they had their earnings report, and it was pretty bad earnings. And they've actually announced more store closures. So we already had over 200 plus stores previously that are going to close, or already did close, and now we're going to have more. We currently don't know how many, but we're probably going to get a few hundred more stores, probably at least another 200 or 300. Eventually, just thinking about this out loud, GameStop is going to disappear. And when they do, that's going to be the last distributor of physical games in the gaming industry. And I really want that to sink in because as much as most of us dislike or even hate GameStop, have worked there, think they're unfair, etc., they're really the only company left that's pulling for physical media because that's been their business model. But like we currently have other companies like Walmart and Best Buy, they're removing physical media out of their stores, including games and movies. Fred Meyer and Target, they're shrinking their physical stuff. And we just see that more and more across the board. There's still little teeny stores around like retro gaming or privately owned little game stores, which is great. But again, they're not the pull to actually make physical media. GameStop as a company, their main idea of making a profit is selling new games, getting them in as trade-in, and then reselling the pre-owned stuff. And that's where they make the bulk of their sales. And even though they've been deteriorating as a company for a long time, when they do eventually disappear, that is going to be one of the biggest companies that used to pull for physical media. And that's going to be tough. We already had the biggest, one of the biggest manufacturers of physical media as a wholesaler go out of business last year. This was actually last year around Thanksgiving. So they recalled a bunch of their stuff back. And so if it feels like some stores are still empty, that's why. The companies that actually make the discs and put the data on physical media, they're not making enough money. And they're going out of business. And that's not being talked about in the industry. And when we lose GameStop, that is just going to be another company that isn't going to be helping distribute physical anymore. And so, folks, it is coming to where digital is going to be the only option. Unless we have a developer or a publisher directly that's willing to put forth the money to actually make the physical themselves. But again, if you don't have any wholesalers that can actually put the data on a physical disc, well, even if publishers want to do it, they can't. And so, this is getting pretty serious. This is getting bad. Yeah, maybe once GameStop is gone, maybe publishers will decide to actually do it like we were chatting about. But maybe, too, a disc will actually become a premium product. Like Larian Studios did with Baldur's Gate 3. I could totally see that. Maybe some other small company would actually take up the mantle. But, it's just kind of a sad day. It's just like GameStop is eventually going to go down. We see these other companies like Walmart, Target, Fred Meyer, and Best Buy cutting back on physical media, and then we have these wholesalers that are going out of business. And yeah, the day's coming, folks. Unfortunately, it is coming. Let's see. Let's talk about Bungie. They're changing their roadmap for Destiny 2 again. And so the idea was that after the final shape, we'd have 3 batches of content called episodes, and then there would be 3 little teeny sub sections of content in those episodes, and basically we were going to get content every 6 weeks. Well, now there's been a major change because after losing roughly about 35% of their staff with the layoffs that Sony did with Bungie, all of that will take place officially in the coming months. They're likely to, with less people, they're less likely to be actually put out the same amount of content. So they're probably going to be putting out less. So now they'll be doing 2 large expansions every 6 months. And we're going to be getting new locations. It's going to be some roguelike gameplay. And then we're going to be getting like a pass expansion every 3 months. So you're going to get 2 pass expansions in that DLC that you're going to pay for or in that expansion. And we don't know how much those are going to cost, but I imagine they'll actually be a pretty hefty price tag. My assumption is that it'll be more than $70 a year still if you bought them to continue to get content for Destiny. And it does seem like the season passes will come with the expansion. So you'll just pay for the expansion, and then everything coming within that 6 months is going to be free to you. But we know, too, that Destiny also has other things that you can pay for. They've done a wonderful job of kind of screwing over the player and microtransactioning everything, and so they've taken some of the events, they've taken some of the other type of game modes and putting them behind paywalls and stuff, and on top of the base game, on top of the DLCs, differentiating between DLCs and expansions. So like you're just having to just pay for everything, and so we don't know exactly how the breakdown is going to be, and yeah, we'll just have to see. But yeah, they are changing their roadmap. It does sound like less content, and this is yep, Destiny is going out to die, folks. That sucks. Because, yeah, Destiny just celebrated 10 years. And playing the game myself, having enjoyed it for a period of time, I quit before the lockdowns because I got tired of their business model. But, like, it was a pretty fun game. I played a lot of it. Started with when it first came out in 2013. Wow, can you believe? Or 2014, excuse me. It's hard to think it's actually that old. That's pretty insane. But yeah, they've done an amazing job actually keeping a live service going. Kudos to them. Yeah, that's quite an achievement. And it's had a pretty good player base too. But, ever since the final shape, even before the final shape, it's really just been a mess. And they've just been losing players, and they can't get new players to come in anymore. It's too convoluted, and it's even challenging for people that have been playing and have been generally keeping up with stuff. And so, yeah, it just sucks that eventually I think this is, Destiny's going to just go out to die. So, yeah, again, we don't have any price idea. Currently, right now, we have about a 40,000 player peak on Steam, and it goes as low as 20,000 on Steam. On PlayStation Time Tracker, it's number 21 in the last 30 days, so it's still having a pretty good portion of PlayStation players play. But PlayStation 4 has actually dropped tremendously. So they're not even playing the game anymore. They're focusing on something else. Maybe they're going to buy the Pro or going to finally upgrade the PlayStation to play some other games. But yeah, Destiny's days are numbered. And then, too, with Marathon, we know, too, that within Bungie, with ultimately 35% less devs, they're going to have to switch and transition over to actually continuing to make and finish Marathon and then start supporting that game and trying to support 2 full games, 2 full live service games that with 35% less devs is going to be incredibly challenging. And I think this is going to create problems for both games next year. It's already had issues with Destiny they've already been building Marathon for a few years. But yeah, again, Bungie's future really doesn't look that bright. And then that sucks. So that's all I got for you guys. Thanks for tuning in. You can always follow me too at Gaming Garbage 22 over at YouTube. You can also follow the links on my YouTube page to Twitch, Discord, and Twitter X. And hopefully you guys are doing okay. For those of you that got slammed in Louisiana with that hurricane, man, hang in there. Some of you got hit pretty bad, and some of the flooding too. And as the storm continued to move forward, and we're still not out of hurricane season. This is going to continue to keep going for a while. So yeah, just be aware, just be careful, and prepare. Just be safe out there. We've also had some insane earthquakes recently. So yeah, just check in on people. And I encourage you guys too, on another note, to just engage with people around you. A lot of us feel alone and tired and just like, life is just mundane, but life's more full when you engage with it. So I encourage you to do that. With that, folks, I'll see you guys on the next one.